So people probably missed what happened over the last week in terms of ADA, and this should get you very excited for what comes next because this is exactly what we saw in the latter part of 2024, right before ADA went on its massive move to the upside. In fact, there is a pattern formation that's playing out right now that suggests we may have a 25% move coming in the very short term. There's a lot of things we need to discuss in this video. So again, if you guys are new or haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that bell again. It's free to do. It'll keep you updated anytime there's new content live here on the channel. So looking at ADA price today, we started with a very, very baby thin green candle. Obviously yesterday we finished in a little bit of red, and we're just dealing with this kind of chop in the market. ADA's fighting that 20-day moving average like we've talked about for a very long period of time. So I won't bore you with that. And what we're seeing in terms of BTC is still resilience, still strength. It's trying to push to the upside. You guys can actually see it is in fact building a little bit of an ascending triangle here. I drew that out terribly. It's not an ascending wedge. It's a very flat top ascending triangle. So we do have the potential for a BTC breakout coming in the very short term. There is a bunch of short leverage up here, which I'm not going to get too much into that in this video because we have so much to discuss already, but we may be on the verge of a BTC breakout that does in fact cause a stir of excitement around the crypto market. Actually, in fact, when we're looking at ADA, we're kind of actually building a little bit of a bull pennant here. So we'll see how this does in fact play out. But what I found very interesting here, and you guys know I find a lot of things very interesting, is what a certain group of whales has in fact been doing over the last week. And whales during the last week have actually dumped about 100 million ADA. All right. Now, this is the specific group of whales that hold between 1 million to 10 million ADA. So this is your speculative whales. So for those that aren't familiar, these are the whales that help drive price up, but then take profits on the way down. There are whales that help defend price, and there are whales that can be in fact detrimental to price. Now, obviously, since probably February or so, these whales have started to unload in a big way. They've gone from about 6 billion ADA in holdings down to about 5.6 billion. So they've unloaded, at least in the recent term, about 400 million ADA. And in fact, again, it was 100 million over the last week. Now, why I'm excited about this, guys, is what did ADA price do over the last week? It rose. All right. So what we're starting to see is retail defend price. We're seeing larger whales defend price because, again, the net flows for whales have in fact been positive. So while these speculative whales have been unloading, the larger fundamental driven whales have in fact been accumulating. And this is something that we're not just seeing in terms of ADA. We're seeing this around the crypto market. And in fact, this is a very similar thing to what we saw last year, right before price began to explode. In fact, you might be able to see a little bit of it in this chart. You kind of see the inflection point right here. This is when those speculative whales stopped unloading, and then they really started adding once we hit November. All right. And what's interesting here is when we continue to look at this ADA formation, if we look at, again, that historic extension like we were talking about, I mean, we're right on trend. And what this shows is that sometime around April 20th through the 25th, we might be talking about a little bit of a surge in terms of ADA price. Now, this isn't a guarantee or financial advice or anything like that, but that gives me a lot of confidence with where we're at. Because again, if we just reached, and I forgot to mention this, if we just reached the lowest level in terms of these whale holdings since October, yes, it is a lower amount of holdings since October, but price is sustaining higher levels. That's a great sign. I will absolutely take that to the bank, because if they just accumulate back what they have unloaded so far, you're talking about a new cycle high in terms of ADA price. All right. That's $400 million or so. It's somewhere between $200 to $400 million in just liquidity alone. And that's enough to move the market cap by billions. All right. Now, what I have to say here as well is right now the current formation of ADA is setting up for a potential 25% rally here in April. And this is a bump and run pattern. I'm not going to get too much into this in this video, but again, we're talking about a potential upside target of about 80 cents, which we obviously haven't seen in a little bit of time for ADA, but that's where we might be headed in the not so distant future if all this stuff continues to play out. And what we're starting to see around the space in general is, again, that confidence like we've been talking about. In fact, some of these mega whales are just adding and adding and adding, accumulating as much as they can right now, right before the market goes on a big reversal to the upside. Okay. Now, obviously, there are no guarantees. I'm not a prophet. Nobody knows what's going to happen for sure. But if whales are buying, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of BTC and other assets in the space, that's a pretty big indication for what comes next. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about timeline. Guys, a timeline isn't really so much of a big deal. It's a reference point more than anything, okay? Some people have said, oh yeah, May is going to be bad. The summer is going to be boring. And I think people forget that historic gains for the summer really aren't that bad. First of all, on average in May, which I see a lot of people referencing and saying, oh, yep, sell and go away in May. May is actually on average a green month. The median is a green month. Yes, there have in fact been some red Mays. All right. But the problem is if you've had so much suppression leading into that, the May tends to be better. All right. Just take a look at back in 2014, right? A lot of suppression, crappy price drops, and then boom, you had a big pop in May. All right. Even June, guys, historically, just a kind of a modest month. It's almost break even on both the average and the median prices or price performance in terms of BTC. And even then, once we look at July, it's an increase month on average. Okay. Now, what I will say in terms of ADA has had more green Mays than it has had red Mays. All right. So yes, ADA's in actually a pretty good spot for a significant run, whether it's this month, next month, June, doesn't really matter because the longer you suppress these prices and the more that the large entities are accumulating right now, the bigger the boom is going to be. There's going to be more people that are in fact chasing because we've had so much capitulation during this time. And unfortunately, people aren't thinking like that. They're not realizing that this is the case. All right. Remember how many people have just called it quits and said, oh, we're entering a bear market cycle, or oh, I'm going to park my capital in USDT. And then once the market starts moving, you're stuck FOMOing because we have such massive candles. The run gets larger. You see major short liquidations. It all comes full circle, guys. We're in a really good spot right now, to be fair. And ADA has the potential for a big run ahead, but we just have to be patient and let these things play out the rest of the way. It's all looking really good. I love what's happening with speculators right now. They're sitting on the sidelines, and this is exactly where the chase may in fact begin. So I appreciate you guys always. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, but have a great day. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.